And 2. And 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask all of you to please take a seat, we'll get this meeting of the Lafayette Parish School Board started. We'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Angel, would you lead us in the pledge? Thank you. Opening comments. Superintendent Trosclair.
Thank you, President Latchley. Good evening, board members, staff, and everyone in attendance this evening. I would like to begin my comments this evening by saying thank you to the voters of Lafayette Parish for the overwhelming support of our millage renewal. The entire Lafayette Parish school system is grateful for your continued support of education in our community. This renewal will allow us to continue to improve, operate, and maintain our public school buildings. The Louisiana Department of Education reports that the Lafayette Parish school system maintained its average ACT score of 19.5, which ranks 8th among 70 districts statewide. LPSS held steady while the LDOE reported that the state ACT average score for students in 2020 dipped slightly from the previous year, down 0.2 of a point to 18.7. Parent-teacher conferences are being held now through Tuesday, November 24th. Teachers are available by phone, email, and video conference to discuss your student and their progress. Please reach out to your child's teachers to make your appointments for our conference. We have extended the deadline for the application for free in-home internet assistance to Wednesday, November 24th. Parents or guardians in need of assistance for internet access are encouraged to visit www.lpssonline.com/smarts. Magnet Academy applications for the 2021-22 academic year opened this past Monday, November 9th. Applications should be submitted via LafayetteChoice.com before the deadline of January 15th, 2021. A lottery drawing for all grade levels will be held Thursday, February 18th, 2021 to determine student placements. Parents needing more information are encouraged to contact the Magnet Academy's office at 337-521-7160. Finally, I would like to introduce to you all Mr. Cameron Thayard, a senior at David Thibodeau STEM Magnet Academy. Cameron was commissioned by Ms. Nikki Walker, our Diversity and Equity Talent Coordinator, to create a promotional recruiting video highlighting several of the positive attributes of the Lafayette Parish school system. Part of Ms. Walker's role, and Ms. Walker, would you stand? This is Ms. Nikki Walker, our Diversity and Equity Talent Recruiter. Part of Ms. Walker's role in our district is to highlight and promote the Lafayette Parish school system in an effort to attract and retain high-quality educators as well as a strong and stable workforce. The video you are about to view is our first LPSS promotional recruitment video. In addition to promoting our great district, this video is even more special because it was created by one of our own LPSS students, Mr. Cameron Thayard, and I would like to introduce his mother, Ms. Nicole Thayard, as well. I know that you're very proud of the special talent and the beautiful work that your son puts out and that he will show our audience and our board members this evening. Mr. Cameron, it's all yours, sir. We will use this video to recruit teachers and other folks to our district.
In education, you get to touch students' lives and their futures.
It's been a goal of Lafayette Parish for their teachers to continuously grow.
In education, you get to touch students' lives and their futures.
It's been a goal of Lafayette Parish for their teachers to continuously grow.
I think Lafayette Parish is a great place for students because everyone is committed to placing an emphasis on reaching the needs of diverse learners.
I was surprised when I came to Lafayette Parish at how much professional development I had offered to me.
The school district gives us all the necessary tools to be successful.
We don't just teach the subjects, we teach life. We make our kids want to be leaders.
My school is so great because it's a nice environment, it's fun learning, and everyone's so welcome.
Lafayette Parish has provided me a way to just grow as a person, and it's really prepared me for the outside world.
I love that I feel like a family, you know, everybody feels like a family. I'm comfortable there.
Our culture is a very loving and nurturing culture, and a lot of teachers, every teacher that I've met in this parish brings that heart into the classroom.
Lafayette Parish stands out because it is the melting pot of Acadiana. People converge on Lafayette Parish for business opportunities. They come here for higher education. They come for the cultural experiences. And I think that our schools reflect the growing diversity of our community.
In an attempt to give students a more exciting and fulfilling educational experience and improve the ethnic diversity of its schools, the Lafayette Parish school system offers magnet academies at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Students receive the instruction they need in the context of a subject they love. Lafayette Magnet Academies offer a wide variety of programs from which to choose.
I think our Schools of Choice program gives kids the upper hand when going into further education.
If you love and respect children, then this is the place to be.
Every single day, what I'm doing as an educator is important.
It is truly something special when you can partner with parents and guardians to shape and mold the education of their children. So if you feel like you want to make a difference in the lives of these kids and feel like a rock star, this is definitely the job for you.
I'm fortunate to work in a job where I can impact the lives of children every day and do something meaningful, and the rewards are just limitless.
Education is by far the most rewarding profession I can ever think of.
They will give you so much satisfaction and your heart will explode.
We need you to help us mold the lives of our future.
It literally is one of the best jobs that I've ever had in my life.
Hi, I'm Irma Trosclair, Superintendent of the Lafayette Parish School System. LPSS is the 6th largest school system in the state with a diverse group of over 30,000 students in 47 campuses. We offer an array of teaching specialty areas and a variety of opportunities for career advancement. LPSS offers competitive pay and benefits for its employees, including health, dental, and vision insurance, as well as a defined benefits retirement plan. Join our team and help us make a difference in the lives of every student, every day.
Venez apprendre avec nous, là où l'éducation compte.
学一种语言，分享一种文化，改变我们的世界。
Joindre notre communauté mondiale.
Somos Lafayette Parish School System, en donde nos apoyamos en la fuerza, la tradición y la excelencia.
There's probably no greater reward than becoming a teacher.
When you think about wanting to change the world, or when you think about wanting to be a positive effect in somebody's life, education is where you do that every single day.
So Cameron, you don't have to say anything, but you're more than welcome to. In conversation with him, I'm happy to hear that he will continue his studies at UL. So he's nearby. Already other departments here at LPSS, they've already contacted you about doing some work and promotional things for their departments as well. But thank you so much. We're really proud of you as a product of our Lafayette Parish school system. Beautiful job, Ms. Walker, great idea. I think that this is something that really sets us apart and will be an asset as we try to recruit high quality teachers to our district. Thank you, Cameron. Mr. President, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Next, We have litigation 2.1, board discussion and our action concerning prospective litigation, and 2.2, discussion and our action concerning prospective litigation. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Morrison, second by Ms. LeBou, that we go into executive session. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? We'll now go into executive session. Thank you. Oh, did you put it up for vote? Can I get a motion that we go back into into regular session?
I'll make
Motion by Ms. Morrison, second by Mr. Angel. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? We're now back in regular session. I will entertain a motion on 2.1, discussion and our action concerning prospective litigation.
Mr. President, I move that the board grant the authority requested by the board's third-party administrator as to 2.1.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. LeBeau, second by Ms. Morrison.
I move that the board grant the authority requested by the board's third-party administrator.
As soon as it's up, we'll go to the vote. Yes, I did. The vote is up.
Seven for, one abstain.
All righty, motion carries. 2.2, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board grant the authority requested by the board's third-party administrator as to 2.2.
Second.
Motion by Ms. LeBeau, seconded by Ms. Morrison. As soon as it's up, we'll go to the vote.
Seven for, one abstain.
Motion carries. We'll move on to information items. 3.1, personnel changes for November 11, 2020. Ms. Aaron Oye.
Good evening. I would like to introduce Brian Alamo as the Director of Accountability to replace the recently retired Tom Spencer. In this position, Alamo will be responsible for providing leadership and management of district accountability services, including student assessment, school improvement, planning, research, and program evaluation. Alamo obtained his Bachelor's of Science degree in mathematics from Northwestern in 2000 before completing an alternative teaching certification program in 2004 at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. He also received a master's degree in education from McNeese State University. He joins us following a 20-year education career in Acadia Parish, where he first taught mathematics and served as an elementary school administrator. Since 2007, he has held the position of District Administrator for Instructional Technology and SIS Coordinator for the Acadia Parish School Board. In that role, Alamo provided technical, database accountability, and curricular support to district leadership. As chairman of the SWLA JPAMS user group, he advised 15 school districts on best practices for reporting student information to the Louisiana Department of Education. Mr. Alamo?
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here, and although I started before the release of the recruitment video, I can tell you there's a lot of truth inside that video. This is a great place to be. The atmosphere is absolutely contagious. Everyone is very happy, very supportive, and I could not be more thankful to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I am also pleased to announce that Allison Champagne is the new principal of Broussard Middle, taking over from Heather Olson, who moved to a district leadership position. Ms. Champagne has been with the school system for more than 23 years, 17 of which were spent as a classroom teacher. In addition, she has served in various administrative positions, including the last 5 years as assistant principal for L.J. Alamo's Fine Arts Magnet Academy. Ms. Champagne is a native of Lafayette, and she holds a master's degree from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Ms. Champagne?
Good evening, Ms. Trosclair and members of the board. I'd like to thank you for giving me this new opportunity. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of working under several really great administrators, Mr. Mouton, Ms. Gardner, and most recently, Mr. Luquette. I'd like to thank my family for their support and sacrifice over the years, especially my mom, who's always been supportive and encouraging of me. I'm looking forward to returning to Broussard Middle, where I began my career, and beginning a new journey with them as we continue to make Broussard the great school that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is that it, Ms. Oye? That's it? Thank you. Next item on the information 3.2 is recognition of the Learn United initiative. Ms. Trosclair?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Ms. Carly Amlabar, who will make some presentations. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, and thank you, Ms. Trosclair, for the introduction and for allowing me to be on the agenda this evening. My name is Carly Amlabar. I'm with the United Way of Acadiana, and I'm here tonight because in response to COVID-19, we partnered to do some work with many of the folks in your district to do programming on AOC community media in a program we called Learn United that was intended to broadcast educational programming throughout the pandemic, which we did from April until actually I think it's still going on. And that was only possible because of some of the great work of awesome community members, including teachers in your school district that submitted content throughout the spring and summer. And we worked with community partners to make that as available and accessible to students in the district as possible. I think we all learned throughout COVID-19, I think the word of 2020 is probably going to be pivot. And I think you all know that United Way has been a longtime partner in education with LPSS, which we're committed to in the long term. And so we were very excited to be able to partner to make Learn United come to be. And we look forward to that and many more partnerships in the years to come. So I know you all have a busy agenda this evening, so I won't take much time. I just want to recognize 3 educators, 2 programs, and 2 key community partners who helped make this possible. So I'm going to start with the teachers. We have certificates of appreciation as well as a small award for them, and so I'll start with Lauren Klein, and then we're going to take a photo, hopefully, if you all don't mind. And the second teacher is Taylor Wallace. The third teacher is Morgan Mercado. Also contributing educational content was PACE. I'm sure many of you guys are very familiar with the PACE program at ACA. So Bria's here. We also have Junior Achievement, and Miss June DeBayon is here. And then AOC Community and Media, who is always a great partner, obviously gave us their network to do it and broadcast the learning over it as well as the internet. And then finally, we couldn't have done it without the support of Cox Communications and David Dockan. So I just want to thank you all for allowing this opportunity to recognize these awesome folks tonight.
Thank you to everyone who participated. Ms. Almlabar, thank you to you and United Way. Next item, 3.3, Information Annual LSU Ag Center Report. Mr. Hebert.
How can I pull the presentations on here? Oh, okay. I didn't see it. Yeah. Thank you. I'm Charles Hebert with the LSU Ag Center County Agent here in Lafayette. I want to thank y'all for this opportunity to present our annual report. Good evening, President Lachelet, Superintendent Trusclair, board members, administration, and guests. Today we're going to give you an annual report of this past year's 4-H and LSU program that operates within the school system. The LSU Ag Center is a local presence of the land-grant university systems, both LSU and Southern, in the Lafayette community. Our mission is to deliver research-based information to the citizens of the Lafayette Parish. As many of you may know, there are agreements between USDA, which is part of the land-grant university system. The Cooperative Extension System began in 1914 with the Smith-Lever Act, and that in turn created a three-way partnership, which is the Cooperative Extension System, with federal government being USDA, the state government being both land-grant university systems in Louisiana is LSU and Southern, and local government, which consists of both Lafayette Consolidated Government and Lafayette Parish School System. There is an LSU Ag Center office in all 64 parishes in Louisiana, as well as 17 research stations throughout Louisiana. The closest research station to Lafayette would be the Crowley Research Station, which would consist of both rice and crawfish. So those are two commodities, ag commodities, that are researched right here in our own communities. In the area of ag and natural resources, this is a list of programs that are available to members of the community, citizens in Lafayette Parish, and then there are several master's level program, which is intense training for farmers and or gardeners, because Master Gardener is one of those. That's an intense 10-week class that community advocates for gardening come out and take that class. So they'll go a full day from August through November, and they'll learn about gardening. Many of those people are involved with our school garden program, and we'll talk more about that, but a lot of those are retired educators from the school system that wanted to go back in and teach kind of like on their own schedule. So that's how we've worked school gardens in most years. Our annual Master Gardener, there's a class annually, but they do give back to the community. There's a speakers bureau. They're out giving presentations to members of our community. We talked about the School Garden Initiative. There's a Healer's Garden at Vermilionville with local Louisiana plants. They have annual plant sales, and those Master Gardeners give nearly 12,000 hours a year back in volunteer hours to our community, which is estimated just their net worth or that impact a little over $300,000 with their volunteer efforts. In the area of community, our family and consumer sciences, they do programs which are youth programs, and there are a couple. Let's Eat for the Health of It, and then a summer nutrition program. Then there are adult programs. There's another version of Let's Eat for the Health of It, working with healthy beginnings for your new baby, general nutrition, and then they are also involved in health fairs in our community. Then y'all are very familiar with 4-H. We are a non-formal co-curricular educational program that does exist through your partnership within the school system. This past year, we had over 1,500 members in 50 schools. And through that, we have school enrichment, which is not our traditional 4-H program. It's based on a teacher's interest. So some of those subject matter areas may be like wetlands. Many of your science teachers in middle and high school utilize the wetlands curriculum. Embryology pilot was a new embryology program for 3rd and 8th graders. Our teachers apply for that, but they will actually hatch chicks in the spring in the classrooms through this new pilot program, which is embryology. And as I mentioned, we do school gardening and service learning. Many of our volunteers, both youth and adult, give back to their community as well, and they give back in 4-H over 1,500 hours annually. This past year, Louisiana won the National Championships Sweepstakes Shooting Sports Award, which 4-H does offer a shotgun program, which is very structured, very disciplined. The kids and their parents have to go to safety meetings. They have to take the hunter education course. But this is the first time in 20 years that Louisiana brought that award back to the state. So that was a phenomenal effort, and we did have a kid on that team from Lafayette Parish. So we were excited. They didn't anticipate bringing that big trophy back to Louisiana. It had to be shipped. It couldn't fit in the van. Y'all are well aware of the School Garden Initiative. Many of you have served on teams before. We appreciate all of y'all's support. This is integrating school garden curriculum and nutrition education into the classroom where our young people are learning to eat new vegetables. Many that have never tasted some of those vegetables prior to growing them at the school in their own gardens. This is a picture from Charles Burke on the left-hand side. We do an annual school garden cook-off. This is the winners this past year, which was Green Tea Linden. That was our 6th annual cook-off. So we appreciate all of y'all's efforts in support of that. And as y'all know, recently, we have a whole new focus that began during this really last spring. Programs have shifted from our traditional audience-based program to virtual programs. 4-H programs right now are in Google Classroom, thanks to Ms. Jennifer, Ms. Trosclair for allowing that to happen. It's a little different, but it is working. One thing I mentioned to Dr. Rabelais earlier was that parents are getting information. The newsletters we used to print by the thousands and send home with kids, students, they didn't always get home. But now they're on Google Classroom, electronic version, and now the parents know more about what's going on than previously, even though it was always on social media. So there are a couple of good things that are coming out from this, at least communication. So we're working through all this, but we're working through both disasters from COVID and now hurricane relief, working with both, Carly was here earlier, working jointly with United Way and several other organizations to make sure information is out there for everyone that needs that. So if y'all have any questions, just want to finalize with our mission, and that is truly to help the people of Louisiana, in our case, Lafayette Parish, to improve their lives through an educational process using research-based knowledge based on the local needs and issues within the local community. So I want to thank y'all, the school board and the administration, for y'all's continued support. Even though we're doing things a little different, we appreciate the opportunity to still be engaging our young people into something different, which is learning, hands-on learning, even though it is a little different. We're doing more videos than we ever thought we would be doing, but it's working. So we thank y'all again. Y'all have any questions?
Go ahead, sir. Come to the podium, please, if you have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
School campuses.
9. 9 schools have gardens.
These are vegetable gardens?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And in your packet, each of you should have a packet. There are a couple of things in here. One is the annual profile, which is this one-page sheet based on everyone we reach annually, and a summary of this past year. On the back, you have local statistics within the community based on agriculture. and then a copy of this presentation, and in there you will also find a Louisiana State 4-H annual report. If y'all have any questions, our contact's in here, but feel free to reach out and tell me what your needs are. Many of y'all have called about trees in your yard. That's been a big thing here this past couple of months, but even fruit trees should have lots of fruit on them this time of year. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hebert.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Thank y'all.
President, can I say one thing?
You can.
I learned, my son was in the program, but then I was on a cooking team later, and I learned that they need an elected official on each cooking team. I know Mary was there when I was there. So if any of you elected officials in the House would like to be on a cooking team in the future, just keep that in mind. It's a wonderful experience.
Ms. LeBeau, may I say something?
Yes, you may.
I've won twice and come out second once.
Well, we lost, but I still feel good in my heart.
And
Mr.
you go-
President.
And I'd like to say my husband won,
Two.
Mayor Purvis Morrison won the very first year, Elio Jadis in
I've
Scotland.
got to let Mr. Broussard has to speak. Go ahead, say it.
Yes, and I'm looking at the video where there was not a school board representative there last year, which would, I feel that one of us could have been in the video since we're the school board member. And I did win one time.
They only put the winners in the picture, sir.
But there was not a school board.
So the others were not in the picture, but we were there.
The only thing I
did win once.
We were there.
The one thing I think
Congratulations.
Mr. Hebert will back up that our new board members don't realize when it comes to dishwashing, me and Mr. Broussard combined make probably the best team that has ever existed. So, well, hopefully my wife's not watching this issue. There's gonna be dishes when I get home. 3.4 is facilities, monthly facilities updates. This is something I had added to the agenda that if the board would like to see remain, it can have items in it or no items in it. If staff feels they would like to give us information on something, this would be their time to do it. As we move on into the next year with new officers on this board, if that's something we choose to keep, let's discuss it. But tonight we have the driveway at Charles Burke, which the board approved the money like over 3 years ago, and I don't know if it was complications or problems with the state, but we do have the information here that Mr. Bordelon has provided. We had allocated money for it 3 years ago, and Mr. Bordelon, is there anything you'd like to add to this? And maybe come up to the podium, and if any board members have any questions on any projects that are being done now, they can ask, and I ask our board members to maybe be a little lenient. You may ask a question, and Mr. Bordelon might not have the information readily available, but I'm sure he'd get it to us via email or phone call quickly. Mr. Bordelon?
Good afternoon, good evening, members of the board. Regarding the Charles Burke driveway, we did have a fruitful meeting with the representatives from the Department of Transportation and Development, as I stated in the agenda item. So we do have I guess a yellow light to move forward. However, as also mentioned in the agenda item, it seems that we will need some additional funding if we want to move forward with this project.
I think we can bring that up at a later time. I think the people who travel these two state highways are going to actually be ecstatic that we're actually getting started on this 3 years later. It is a severe safety hazard with Richfield and Ridge Road. Many cars, and I mean, I know other board members have traffic issues at their schools, and we've solved some. I appreciate the information. I appreciate you getting back. Does any other board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Bordelon concerning maybe any projects in your district? Mr. Angel?
Yes, it's been a couple of years since we also approved a covered area for the bus unloading at Karen Crow Middle. Could you give me any update on that?
Yes, sir, I can. Ms. Trosclair, have you sent out that document yet? You have? Okay. The Karen Crow Middle, we've signed a contract with the contractor. They are waiting on the materials right now. According to our update that was sent to all the board members, the canopy should be shipped out on or around November 23rd. Foundations will be installed during the week of November 23rd, and the canopy erection should start about a week later. It's anticipated to take about 1 week to install everything. So barring no unexpected weather delays or unforeseen conditions, we should be substantially complete about the first week of December.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ms. LeBeau?
I have a question about a similar project at Broussard Middle. I know we had approved the funding for I guess it would be like a circle drive or a drive on that left side of the school. Can you give me an update on that?
We are waiting for the determination of architects and engineers selection process so we can move forward with that.
And can in general, can you give me your, that's a different question, but yes, so that's where we're currently waiting for.
Yes, ma'am.
How many projects would you say that's where we are in the stage? Just estimate.
Estimated about 35 to 40 projects.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question, Dr. Aguilar?
That was my question.
That was your question?
Broussard Middle.
Okay. Mr. Broussard?
Mr. Butler, could you give me an update on the request that was made for J. Wallace James covered walkway? From what I understand it from the principal, we submitted that some 2 to 3 years ago, and no one has been out there to take measurement or to see what was, with this flu season rapidly approaching. These kids cannot go to class if it's raining, so they can't go to class. So could you give me an update about where we're at? Oh, as far as I know, we're still in the beginning stage.
That's another project that we're waiting on the selection process to be finalized.
On the selection?
Of the architects, engineers selection process, so we can get that drawn up, bid out, and started.
It's 2 years ago.
Mr. Broussard, that's one of the small projects list that we have that we're waiting to improve the selection process from earlier this year, and we are in the process right now. Mr. Guidry's been working with Jim Poche in presenting to you all an improved process. So we'll get that to you all. But that is one of the 35 to 40 projects that Mr. Bordelon referenced earlier.
I can understand it being a small project to someone else's eyes, but it's a very large project to the needs of the school, the parents, and the kids that are there.
Yes, sir. So I wasn't referencing that it was a small project. By my opinion, I was simply saying, I think that's what we call the list, Mr. Bordelon, that
yes,
it's just a list, and that's what it's been called, all of those projects, based on dollar value. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mason?
Kyla, I wanted to see what the update is for the removal of some of the Butler buildings. I've just gotten several questions. I know it's a long, lengthy process, so I just wanted you to let us know where we are in that process.
Yes, ma'am. There are, there's I call it package 1 and package 2. Package 1, we have sent out for bids on 2 different occasions. We have to put it out a 3rd time, which I'm working on that update for those documents. Package number 3, well, I'm sorry, let me back up. On the third time we put it out, there is no minimum bid. So those schools will be Ridge, Drexel, Woodvale, and Evangeline. That's in package 1. So at the same time that we're taking bids for someone to purchase buildings, we're also going to, in the same document, have a second column that if no one bids on it, we're going to take bids to demolish the same buildings. So package number 2, which I'm also working on that package to put out for bids, involves some of the other wing projects, such as Broadmoor, Alamon, and Middlebrook. So I'm working on that package to put that out for bids also. When we put out package number 2 the first time, minimum acceptable bid is going to be appraised price. So I've gotten those appraisals all completed. I'm putting together the package to put that out for bids.
Okay, the only other question I had was about the storm debris and like some of, like at Milton, there's still some trees that need to be cut and hauled away. Where are we in that process?
We're still working on it. I mean, we had a lot of trees to cut at a lot of different campuses. Some of those trees that were not in a critical location, we purposely did not address those at the moment. Some of the trees that fell, we had to get a contractor in because it was just too big for our crews to handle. So, but we're still working on debris pickup and debris removal at this time.
Do we have a timeline of, do you have a deadline for when those, I just have principals?
No,
asking.
that we have no deadline, but we're actively working on it, plus everything else.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes, Kyle, I don't think I have any projects existing, but I just want to make sure Dusong, West Side, as well as Austin. Is there anything you're doing in those areas?
At Austin, we finished up a kitchen air conditioning project back a few months ago. West Side, we recently completed the installation of 3 classroom portable buildings and a restroom building. And at Dusong, we haven't had any projects there lately.
So with the storm, I guess we did okay. Nothing major, any damages other than just debris and like
Right. Yes,
every
ma'am.
other school.
Dr. Aguilar?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Kyle, could you give us an update on improvements for the welding shop area at Como High School?
That's another project caught up in the small project selection process.
Ms. LeBeau?
Is Mr. Poche in the building with us? Do we know when our next scheduled meeting is with Mr. Poche? No. When Mr. Poche does come, who does he meet with? Billy?
So, his involvement, he sat in on the first meeting when we met with the directors of the AIA State Association organization and the ASEC, the Engineering Association. He sat in on that and commented. His involvement's going to be minimal because he doesn't want there to be a conflict of interest. So the point we're at is we've taken the guidelines that both directors have provided us with. Those guidelines are followed both at the state and national levels. We've incorporated it into the narrative we've written of the process that we followed as amended by some of the recommendations made by both directors. We've completely redone the RFQ package, and we're at the point that we're ready to submit it to both directors so that they can vet it through their associations, both at the state level and at the local level. So my hopes are that come January, that process will be complete and we'll have something to bring to the board for approval.
Wonderful. I really appreciate the update. And one more question, if you don't mind, for Mr. Bordelon. Do you have a comprehensive spreadsheet of some sort that you're using that maybe the board could be provided prior to the meetings, or maybe at some point during each month, so we can see the status of projects, or not even each month, but at some interval at which we could, that way you wouldn't have to be up here we wouldn't be firing off questions at you, just kind of some kind of document where we could all stay abreast.
I do not have a document that comprehensively lists everything
Okay.
at this time.
And even just a small project document or something where we could
I mean, I'd have
Excel?
to try to put one together.
Okay. We'll discuss it later. I was just curious if there was already some kind of spreadsheet or something you were using that we could all access, and then that would help us stay informed, and maybe when we meet with our principals or administration, kind of have an idea of where we are in each project. So if possible, that'd be great, but if not, we'll figure out some kind of good mechanism. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Broussard?
Yes. Mr. Bordelon, one of the duties of the committee was to pretty much grade the contract to when the job was finished. And I think it's important for us to follow through on that. I want to commend and applaud the contractors who done the work at Alice Boucher, even though the restrooms are not complete. And they work clean, they work rather slow, but they did an excellent job, with one exception. The conversation I had between you, me, and the architect was that these bricks does not match, and the bricks does not match. Everything was done in professional manner, it was done in good taste, but the bricks does not match. And the conversation I had with them, you cannot take a 40-year brick to match with a modern day brick. It does, and I am totally unsatisfied. And I don't know what can be done, but that's my take on it. The floors are great, the way it's secured, the office is great. I didn't get a chance to look at the restroom as far as where they're at. They're not quite complete. It's supposed to be completed the first of this month, but it's not there. But it's the bricks. It's just different colors. So I don't know what can be done, what should be done, or what will be done, but I would love for you to address that somewhere and take a look at it and see if that can be corrected. Because outside of the school, outside of any building, it's a mirror of what's inside the building. And it's to me, it's maybe the principal can accept it and everybody else, but I truly cannot.
Thank you. Is that it? Thank you, Mr. Bordelon. I think this will be a great opportunity monthly for board members to ask questions. We appreciate it. 3.5 is a scratch. 3.6, estimated cost of new Northside High School. Dr. Chasson.
Just wanted to ask a couple questions about an estimated cost of a new Northside High School. Who can I ask those questions to?
I'll attempt to answer them, Dr. Charson.
Billy, for a new Northside on the current site, I see you guys put 50 million, and that's with using the current athletic facilities, correct?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's correct.
Would any of that 50 million be able to be used for renovations of the stadium, or is that strictly for the individual high school?
The estimation is based on the high school only, but if for some reason all of those funds would not be needed, then we could come back and reallocate it for upgrades to the athletic facilities. There was no consideration in those numbers, and once we move further along, we get a better feel for whether or not there would be room for it.
Okay.
So that number would need to be adjusted if there are to be updates to the facilities at this point in time, anyway, with what we know at this point in time.
Are you pretty familiar with the grounds of Northside High School, the perimeter of the grounds?
That Mr. Bordelon could probably better address if you have questions regarding the grounds.
Okay. The question would be, and maybe you can either nod or answer at the podium, if we started building a new Northside High School, would there be enough green space available, in your opinion?
That's a hard question to answer because there's so many variables that go into the size of the building, what's going to be done, what's going to be covered up, what's not going to be covered up. So it's a very hard question to answer.
Mr. Bordelon or Mr. Guidry, just curious if we were able to secure proper funding for our new Northside High School, would we consider doing something like that on the same grounds? If not, we had enough green space, would that be done in phases or not in phases?
I would think, depending on the availability, green space, depending on how that would work out, would determine if it would, if it could be, if it would have to be phased in or not.
Okay. And I guess my last question would be, depending on if we have enough green space or not, depending on if we tore through an unusable tennis court, use the current football parking lot, the current band space, the current parking lot, to then keep kids at that same location while we begin building in phases or not. How long does a school take on the same site with green space versus no green space and we have to look at other options? Like, what would be the timeline for building on the same site? Would it be 1 year versus 3, 2 years versus 5, 3 versus 3? Just curious if you guys could just take a guess.
In my opinion, we're looking at a minimum 3 years, and that would be like 1 year of design and bidding time and 2 years of construction at a minimum. If we have to take a phased approach, that could add some extra time, and depending on the phasing is going to depend on the length of the extension of time necessary.
Okay.
As a point of reference, Southside High took us 30 months, and we performed that project through the Seymour process, and we pushed that project really hard, and so did the contractor push it really hard. And that's how we were able to complete it in 30 months.
Okay.
But if we were to use a normal timeline construction process, I would say minimum 36 months.
36 months, okay. So Kyle or Billy, 1 year design, 2 years construction, with enough space to really do construction. If we don't have enough space and we had to do it in phases, what's the timeline for that, possibly? Was that 4 years maybe? Is it that much longer?
Well, it depends on how we phase it, how we have to construct one thing before we tear something else down. There's a lot of variables that go into that. I mean, again, easily 36 months, but it could stretch out to 4 years. Just, there's a lot of variables that go into it.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Mr. Gidger.
Is that it, Dr. Shesso? Any more questions? We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Remove 4.7. Thank you. Alrighty. Any others? We'll now move on. Ladies and gentlemen, I will read the items on the consent agenda. If any board member wants an item pulled, we will pull it for discussion. 4.1, discussion and or action concerning vested sick leave of returning employee beyond 5 years.
Pull that, please.
4.2, facilities, discussion and or action concerning a budget revision to the 2019 bond construction fund for Acadiana High School, new field house, classroom renovations, and related furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and facilities and grounds needs. 4.3, facilities, discussion and or action concerning a budget revision to the 2019 bond construction fund for Woodvale Elementary cafeteria expansion. 4.4, discussion and or action concerning a budget revision to the 2019 bond construction fund for Carencro High School field house activity room expansion, related furniture, fixtures, and equipment, updating of press box and facilities and grounds needs. 4.5, facilities, discussion and or action concerning a budget revision to the 2019 bond construction fund for Sideside High School softball and baseball dugouts, restrooms, and concession buildings, related furniture, fixtures, and equipment. 4.6, facilities, discussion or action concerning a budget revision to the self-funded construction fund for Northside High School replacement. Pull it. 4.7 was scratched. 4.8, finance, discussion and or action concerning the grant fund summary for October 2020. 4.9, discussion and or action concerning budget to actual reports for October 2020. 4.10, discussion and or action concerning the sales tax collection report for October 2020. 4.11, discussion and or action concerning bid award for bid 05-21 band instruments. 4.12, discussion and or action concerning the 2020-2021 proposed projects for fundraising matching program. 4.13, risk management, discussion and or action concerning general fund budget revision for property and general liability insurance premium accounts. 4.14, discussion and or action concerning advertising and accepting proposals for casualty and property insurance brokerage services. 4.15, discussion and or action concerning general fund budget revisions to set up accounts for the payment of expenses incurred in repairing and restoring facilities damaged due to Hurricanes Laura and Delta. 4.16, discussion and or action concerning policy GAE, complaints and grievances. 4.17, superintendent, discussion and or action concerning the minutes of October 14th and 28th of 2020, and 4.18 is approval of all action items. Items pulled: 4.1, 4.6, and 4.16. Is there any public comment on any item that was not pulled? This is your chance to speak. Come on up, sir. Please state which item you're speaking on. Come on up to the mic. Come on up to the microphone, please, sir.
Just a quick question on the Woodville item there. Apparently, with all the construction that was recently done, the cafeteria was not part of that remodelization or that removal of the temporary classrooms and all the other work associated. Is that why we have the cafeteria on there now?
Ms. Mason?
The cafeteria expansion is for the effort to eventually move 5th grade from a middle school campus at LJ Alamo to Woodvale. So the campus cafeteria is not big enough to accommodate having yet another grade at the school. So the concession is to make the cafeteria bigger so we can have the 5th graders with the elementary students.
So we moving Alamo kids to Woodvale? And
Yes,
we need
sir.
the cafeteria larger?
Right, the cafeteria needs to be larger to accommodate more students eating lunch at lunchtime.
And that wasn't anticipated when we did the renovations to Woodville?
Well, I wasn't on the board then, But this is something that the community has been talking about. LJ Alamo and Edgar Martin are the last two schools to have fifth graders on a middle school campus, and they're technically elementary students.
Okay, well, yeah, I understand, but apparently, and that was just done, or it's recently completed the construction?
Correction, nine wings have just been completed on various campuses, and we have had a push throughout the parish to move fifth grade off of middle school campuses and put them on elementary campuses where they are a better fit. And now Woodvale is most likely one of the last schools to be able to do that. And the renovations at Woodvale were strictly academic classrooms, replacement of portable buildings, which is what our wings did, replaced portable buildings and put kids in brick and mortar instead of
All right, but if we knew that at the time, in the 4 or 5 years preceding this, while the contractors were there, wouldn't it have been cost savings to do it at that time? Rather than get a whole new bid, design, renovation?
Mr. Guidry?
The funding that's being used for the cafeteria expansion is the result of a bond sale that occurred after the construction on the wing had almost been completed. So the funding that's being used did not exist at the time, was not available at the time that the wing was being added. It became available through an additional bond sale, and the bond sales are based on our ability to service the debt. We can estimate that, and if our projections or actual results are better than our projections, then it does allow us to sell more bonds, and that's what happened in that case.
So what's the projected cost on the cafeteria?
We're budgeting 1.2 million.
1.2 million. And how much are we expanding it by?
I believe from a capacity standpoint, Mr. Bordelon, you can correct me, is it an additional 200 students?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I made a technical mistake. I need a motion to approve all items not pulled.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve all items not pulled.
Ms. Morrison, second by Mr. Angel. I apologize for going straight to public comments. We now have a motion on the floor. Proceed. Any more public comment? Come on up. And could you please state which item you're making the comment on?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. My name is Reverend Sylvia Clues, a resident of Northside, Lafayette. And the item I'm interested in is the Northside High School replacement. I'm very excited to hear this information, and I apologize that I had never heard that before because I had not been coming to the meetings. So I just want to know, what is the projection of the beginning of the process of building? Are we just in the process of evaluating what's going to happen in the architectural things? The question is, what is the projection for the beginning of that project?
Okay, ma'am, to be perfectly honest, that'll probably question will fall into 4.6, which was pulled. That is an item, that is not one of the items that was not pulled.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So that would come. We'll discuss it in a section in a few minutes.
Okay, very
yes, ma'am.
good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can just stay there. It won't be long. Well, no, you might want to sit down, but yeah, don't. Any other public comment on items not pulled? Any board member comment on any items not pulled? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. Also, I'd like to just kind of maybe remind the public, public comments is comments concerning the project, not really a question and answer back and forth between board members or staff concerning the item. It's a comment on whether you support it or don't support it or have anything to add more than a question and answer back and forth.
Seven, 4, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. Next, we'll go to the items pulled. The first one pulled was 4.1. It's discussion or action concerning vested sick leave of returning employees beyond 5 years. Dr. Aguilar, do you pull that?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I'd like to offer a motion that the board approve a period of 8 years rather than 5 years from 2012 for Tiffany Maye to return to the Lafayette Parish School System to allow for the return, continuation, credit of accumulated and vested sick leave as otherwise provided in Louisiana Revised Statute 17:1201 and Policy GBRIB.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. LeBeau.
Do we have to do public comment?
Yeah, the motion will be up in a second. That the board approves a period of 8 years rather than 5 years from 2012 for Tiffany Mayer to return to the Lafayette Parish School System to allow for the return, continuation, credit of accumulated and vested sick leave as otherwise provided in LARS 171201 and Policy GBRIB. Is there any public comment concerning this item? Ms. Reed, I wanted to give you a microphone.
I'm trying to have this baby, not have the baby.
All righty.
Julia Reed, President of the Lafayette Parish Association of Educators, and we want to support one of our valued members in having the sick leave restored to her because it is important that teachers receive their full and fair compensation as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Reed. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tiffany Maye. I was employed with Lafayette Parish in 2007 to 2012, and I stayed home with my children for a few years, and I recently started back in 2019. When I started back, I had my fingerprinting and all my paperwork processed, and I was given my 26.5 days. It was posted to my account, and then in August they were taken away from my account. There's no note of why they were pulled, no information of why they were taken after they were recently granted. So I'm just here to try to situate that.
Thank
Y'all
you.
still need me up here for questions or anything?
Do we have any board member questions? No, ma'am.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
Yes, ma'am. Any other public comment? Hearing none, any board member comment? Dr. Aguilar?
Members of the board, Tiffany earned these sick leave days by working in the Lafayette Parish School System. She left the school system, did not go and work for any other school system in the state of Louisiana, returned to work in the Lafayette Parish School System, and those 27 or so days were in her, I guess, her leave files. They disappeared, likely because this policy was changing such that the threshold was 5 years to recover sick leave days that had been earned but not used. She's now asking the board to allow her to retain those unused sick leave days because she is back at work in the Lafayette Parish School System, has been since 2019. These days don't cost the school system anything. And so I urge you to allow Tiffany to receive credit for those days that she earned previously in the Lafayette Parish School System.
Mr. Angel?
Let me preface my remarks by saying I totally agree with you. What my question is, I think we should treat everyone who works for us the same. So if it's going to be 8 years for this young lady, it should be 8 years for everybody who works for us. Would you accept that as an amendment, or is that part of your motion, Doc?
I am happy with that as an amendment. My understanding, without talking to anyone specifically about this topic, was that there might be some consideration to revise this policy. So yes, I would welcome that as an amendment.
I so move then to amend his motion to that effect.
Okay. We're in board member comment now, sir.
You need us, Mr. President.
Will this take a substitute motion, or do we just amend this motion, Ms. Boudreaux? Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest we can, the December meeting is in 2 weeks. We can revise the policy and bring the policy to the December meeting, if that's okay with you guys.
That is our attorney's recommendation. Ms. LeBeau?
My question, and it was going to be for Danielle, is if we revise our policy, is that going to solve the problem, or do we also need to look at 17-1201 and see the conflict between the two?
The statute says 5 years.
Okay.
Or a
Wherever
longer period that the board approves. You can write into your policy a number of years that you want to approve all the time. You can say, we'll go 8 years. And so then it's always going to be 8 years for everybody, or you can say 10. You can make it whatever you want.
Yeah.
So,
But my problem is if we put a finite number of years on it, we might run into other exceptions. And look, there might be people that were out for 6 years that didn't know this existed and didn't even come and try to, I feel like if we leave it open like this, then it allows anybody who wants to petition the board to get their time, the ability to do that. And then we're not setting a number of years so that if somebody comes back 8.5 years later, we're having to look at their situation differently. I just feel like if we are not educating the teachers that this is a available option, then maybe that's what we need to look at policy-wise. But I feel like if we try to mess with it, because right now we've given the ability for people to request it and for us to approve it. So just I don't know if I would venture into let's set a number of years, let's set a specific situation. I think what we do here is we do it on a case-by-case basis. I think this is a merited situation, and I would like to grant her the days. And if anybody else didn't know this was an option, I hope that we find a way to communicate with them that if you had vested, days that you lost due to a period of time, come and seek the board's approval.
Thank you, Ms. LeBeau. Any other board member comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
What are we voting for?
No, sir. No, sir. Same motion.
Which motion are we voting on? Okay.
Dr. Aguilar's original motion, not amended. Not amended, sir.
Seven, 4, 1 against.
Motion carries. Next item pulled. 4.6 was facilities discussion and our action concerning the budget revision to the self-funded construction fund for the Northside High replacement. That was pulled by Dr. Chasson.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve a budget revision increasing the amount of .617 mils to the self-funded construction fund to initiate funding for a new project, Northside High School replacement, with an offsetting budget decrease to the line item committed school sites renovations, construction, and land building acquisitions, and that the board commit to the same line item the equivalent of 2.067 mils with an offsetting budget decrease to the line item committed for next school year projects.
We have a motion on the floor. Second by Mr. Broussard. I'll wait for the motion to come up. Dr. Chasson, is that the same one that's on the website, or is this a different one? It's different? Okay. I'll wait for it to come up. Do we have any public comment concerning item 4.6 and Dr. Chasson's motion?
That's the lady, young lady.
Young lady, this would be your time to make a comment. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's a pleasure to hear that project is going to come to fore, and I simply wanted to get information as to about when that would begin. I don't know if Mr. Chasson said it, because I didn't understand all the words. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You can come on up, sir.
Apparently, there's a breakdown of how these items are budgeted or approximate amounts for these things. I don't have it, so I don't know. I mean, I know it's a question, but and it's just, there's no dollar amounts on here. So if you're just looking at the agenda, it makes it real difficult to understand what the board is voting on and everything. And so
I'll wait
to
for
me, it's
I'll wait for Dr. Chasson unless Mr. Guidry can answer this. But once again, I'll remind, this is a comment section, not a question and answer. But I'm sure those questions will be answered, sir. As soon as Dr. Chasson takes his seat and we get to board member comment, I'm sure these questions will be asked. Right? It's only comments, sir. If you have a comment, if you're for or against the agenda item.
well stated, I would be against it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening. You just heard from Reverend Cluse, and I'm also Reverend Cluse, was my spouse. My children, grandchildren. By the way, Ms. Cluse was the very first director of the health program that was initiated at Northside High School many years ago. All of my children and grandchildren graduated from Northside High School. I worked at Northside High School several years after I graduated. And I'm very excited about the possibility of seeing Northside as a very viable school in this parish, with the possibility of bringing programs that would have students coming from across the parish attending Northside High School. And I think by making improvements, by establishing a new school, a school that we would be proud to attend, I would be all in favor for it. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Any other public comment before we go to board member comment? Any board member comment?
Mr. Lasley,
Dr. Aguilar?
could we see the motion, please?
It's up on mine. Do y'all see it?
I don't see it.
I can read it to you. That the board approves a budget revision increase in the amount of .617 mils to the self-funded construction fund to initiate funding for new project, Northside High School replacement, with an offsetting budget decreases to the line items, committed school sites renovations, construction, and land building acquisitions, and that the board commits to the same line items the equivalent of 2.067 mils with an offset budget decrease to the line item committed to next year school projects. That's complicated. we're gonna need some explanation on that.
Okay, so Mr. Lodgley, could we maybe ask Mr. Guidry to break that down and explain what that would look like and what it would cost in terms of allocating these mills for these projects?
Well, the .617 mils equates to right at $1,357,858, which would come from the, as mentioned, the commitment for renovations, constructions, and land building acquisitions account, as well as a contingency for that same account. The sum of those two accounts, the account balances that exist at this point in time equate to the $1,357,858. The 2.067 mils equates to $4,547,400. So in essence, I believe with the balance that exists right now, if my memory serves it correctly, in the future projects, that would leave approximately $5 million in that account for next year's projects. So it reduces the balance from a little over 9 to 5.
I have a question.
Any other questions, Dr. Aguilar? Are you still thinking? Okay, I'll come back to you if you don't mind. Does any other board members have any questions?
I have a question.
Ms. Mason?
Billy, Mr. Guidry, the .617 mils, was this previously committed to anywhere else, or I'm just curious where it was committed previously, or was it just sitting there?
Originally, that account was set up when the Economic Stabilization Fund was reduced from 3 months to 2.5 months to provide for capital projects. So when that transfer was made to capital projects, this particular account was set up, and since its original setup, we've charged some of the wing additions to this account. So it's not, there are no specific commitments that exist associated with this account. This is basically the balance that remains after the wing additions are removed or are deducted. So it's committed for capital projects, but those capital projects have not been identified.
Mr. Guidry,
Ms. Donjo?
do we have similar dedicated millages for the 3 schools that we've been talking about rebuilding, Karen Crowe Heights, what is it, Lafayette High and
Prairie.
and Prairie? Do we have dedicated millages for those projects?
Well, just for, I'll answer your question. I just want to clarify, when the funds were set aside for the 3 projects, it was set aside such that the dollar value equivalent to a certain number of mills would be transferred. So there are no dedicated mills per se, but there's a little over $4.5 million in the current year that's being transferred to this commitment for those 3 schools. So there is a recurring, it used to be 1.7 million. This year it got increased to 4.5 million. That's being transferred from general fund to capital. So I think that answers your question, but I just wanted to clarify that it's not per se a dedicated meals, it's just the amount of the transfer, was stated in, as an equivalent of a meal, what percentage of a meal it would equate to.
So a total of 4.5 million is going this year.
That's correct.
That's for all three the three schools that I'm talking about.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
It's dedicated to those three schools.
It is. It's going to the commitment
what,
to those three schools.
what is that in terms of a millage? Approximately.
$2.05 mils.
Okay, that's for all three schools.
That's correct.
And what is the motion for one school? How many meals?
2.067.
So the motion is for approximately the same number of meals that all the other three schools have to share.
At this point, I think the difference at this point would be once these if this is approved and those funds are allocated for this purpose, it's a one-time commitment because those funds would no longer be available. The 4.5, assuming is recurring, assuming that the board approves it when we present next year's adopted budget. So it's different in that regard. It's one-time monies in the case of what's being proposed. For the three projects, it's recurring. So that
Okay.
would be the difference.
Okay, am I understanding that right, Dr. Shastal? It's a one-year commitment?
Thank you, thank you.
Any other board member comment, questions? Ms. LeBeau?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Guidry, so the bonding ability on this money is not the same as the recurring funds that we've set up for Lafayette High, correct? It just basically we're replacing the 4.5 that possibly has already been voted on tonight?
Yes, that is correct. One-time monies would be what we refer to as pay-as-you-go type funding, which is the way we began the commitment for the three schools that Mr. Angel mentioned previously. That's how that started. And then once we get to a point where we feel comfortable that it can be recurring, or we identify how it can be recurring, then at that point the board could consider bonding it out.
Thank you. And one more question. So the 4.5 million then would take away from those 35 projects that Mr. Bordelon was talking about earlier? This is where that money would come from?
Those projects the budget for those projects have
Has
already been set
approved?
aside, so it's over and above those.
It's just future projects that we have not yet proposed?
It would not take from, eliminate any of those projects.
And we have this funding without taking away from, we're taking away from future projects, not existing projects, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Aguilar?
So, Mr. Guidry, the .617 mils, changing that number, it's taking it out of the funding source for the self-funded construction and dedicating it to rebuild Northside High School, is that correct?
From an accounting standpoint, we would report it the same way we reported the commitment for the three schools. It's a line item in the self-funded construction fund. There would be an additional line item that would be a commitment for Northside High. That's how we would account for it. And accumulate it as we move forward through the process.
But the source of the .617 mils, that's not new money that's being requested.
Correct. It's existing.
It's existing money, and currently, what is that existing money targeted for?
It was the commitment account that was initially set up when the fund balance, Economic Stabilization Fund was reduced from 3 months to 2.5 months, plus any amount over and above that was transferred to this account. So at that point in time, it was not committed for any specific project, and then we began using these funds for some of the wing additions. This is the balance that's left after the wing additions that have been identified are completed.
One more question, Mr. Guidry. In the fund that we've set up for replacement for Lafayette High, Prairie, and Karen Crow Heights, are those three schools named specifically in the motion to set up those accounts?
Yes, sir. The commitment specifically mentions those three schools.
So I guess I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Would it not, Mr. Guidry, would it not make more sense to add Northside High School to the list of schools determined by the board to be rebuilt as soon as we have available funds? What I'm not understanding is, why would we be pulling $4.5 million and dedicating it to rebuild Northside High School when we heard earlier tonight that it would take a minimum of 3 years for planning and construction for that new Northside High School? The question really is, what are we going to do with the $4.5 million that we're parking without a specific need for the money?
My response to that would be, it's similar to what was done when we first started funding the three schools that were mentioned: Karen Crow Heights, Lafayette High School, and Prairie. We started with pay-as-you-go funding because we could not commit to recurring revenues, with the intent of, as we progress during the budget processes, we would in fact make an attempt and continue in our efforts to identify recurring revenues. So I would see this as being a similar process to what was used when we first started funding the three schools. It was pay as you go because that's all we could do at the time. So I would see it working in a similar fashion.
Ms. LeBeau?
Can I ask Mr. Guidry one more question?
Yes, ma'am.
I know in speaking to the principals in my district that got a new wing, there are needed things like fencing and I think the camera issue was resolved, but there were some issues with fencing and access and safety. Are we allowed to use any of this construction money to ensure that now that we've placed these new wing additions on the campuses, yes, we've completed them, we know we have a surplus now, that they are completed in light of any other issues like that? I mean, are we allowed to use the money for any of those things?
Those funds would be eligible for funding that as well. It's just a matter of how the board chooses to use those funds. So to answer your question, yes, they could be used for those types of projects.
So I guess my reservation, and not that I disagree with the need for a new Northside High School or initiating some funding, my only reservation is that, again, I know that there is a fencing and safety issue at one of the schools that has a new wing. I would like to see that resolved, and if we have the funding, let's go ahead and do that. Maybe just make sure that those projects are completed with those issues in mind, and then take the excess from there, which should be close to what we have now, but there may be some other issues, just to make sure that we completely close out this project appropriately before we fund another future project. But again, I support the rebuild of as many schools as possible, including Northside High. I just want to make sure that we tie up and we dot our I's and cross our T's before we move on to something else, because I don't want us to walk away from a project that's causing issues with the principals in the existing schools.
Any other questions? Board member questions? Ms. Morrison?
Yes, So the current north side, we will not use any part of that school. That will be totally demolished and build a new school on its property. Is that correct? Is that the plan?
I believe the intent is to replace the school, but not the athletic facilities.
Okay.
Yes.
So we now, okay, thank you.
Any other board member comments? I guess the only question I have is any of this, or does any of this slow down or remove funds from what has already been put into place for Lafayette High, Prairie, and Kankra Heights? The 0.6 or the 2.0, is this addition to, or, because we're in a process, you know, a 3-4 year whatever process towards these three. Does any of this affect the money that's being accumulated to build those? This is now a new venture to accumulate funds to work on a new north side, whether it's a renovation, replacement, tear down, whatever. Or the two separate?
It does not reduce. So the amount, the 4.5 million that we were talking about earlier, does not reduce that amount. But by the same token, if the board so chose, this amount could be not as recurring as one time, could be added to that line item. So it doesn't reduce it. It could, however, increase it, if I'm being clear on that. But the 4.5 is not being impacted. This is over and above. So in that regard, it would have no impact on that funding for those three schools.
Thank you. Any other board member comment? Questions? Madam Secretary, I call the vote.
Six for, 2 against.
Motion carries. Next agenda item is 4.16, which is risk management discussion and action concerning policy GAE, complaints and grievances. This was pulled by Mr. Broussard.
Yes, Mr. President, I pulled this item for the sole purpose of voting against it. I know as traditional, we vote for the unpulled items globally, and I wanted to pull it for that specific reason. A substitute motion can be made, but I want to go on record to say I do not support this.
We need a motion.
Motion not to approve.
Okay, we have a motion not to approve. Do we have a second? There is no second on the motion. Mr. Angel?
I would make a motion to approve it.
We now have a motion on the floor to approve it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Aguilar. So the motion is that the board approves the proposed revision to policy GAE, complaints and grievances as attached in the public content section of this agenda item. Motion by Mr. Angel, seconded by Dr. Aguilar. Is there any public comment on this item? Come on, Ms. Reed, I'm gonna give you time.
So I just want to express our appreciation. We had several meetings with Ms. Trosclair and Ms. Gardner to revise this policy. Overall, we're happy with most of the revisions, especially some that clarify things for how employees go about utilizing the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Any other public comment on this item? Any board member comment on this item? Mr. Broussard?
Reasons that I do not support this is, even though I understand there has to be a policy in place, but, you know, being on this some 5 or 6 years, and the grievance, you can arrive at any answer you want to with the process in place. And I've heard from several people who don't want to go through the process because the end results is the same all the time, and they're fearful of their job. So it's nothing personal with this agenda item, but it lends human error, and the end result is not a positive thing, and it defeats the morale of some of the employees. But I understand there has to be policy in place to follow the procedure, but the end result is whatever you want it to be.
Thank you, sir. Any other board member comment? Mr. Angel?
Yes, I'd like to, I'm supposed to talk to the president, but relative to Mr. Broussard's concerns, I intend to vote for the motion, but I certainly am in agreement with having meetings or special meetings or whatever it takes to correct some of the problems that some of our teachers see in this, and or some of our employees see in this, including Mr. Broussard.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. Any other board member comment? Ms. LeBeau?
I just want to thank Ms. Reed for coming out and for letting us know how the teachers feel about it, for all the time and effort y'all put into this, policy. I was more concerned about the fact that the school board does not get the benefit of having anything other than the transcript and maybe a comment by a representative of the teacher. But as long as the teachers are aware of that and they're okay with that, then I, just am grateful that y'all took the time to really go through and be thorough. Thank you.
Any other board member comment before I go to the vote? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. While we're waiting for the results, ladies and gentlemen, our December meeting will be December 2nd. It'll be the first Wednesday of the month, not traditionally like the second.
6 for, 1 against, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. Before we adjourn the meeting, we're doing that with the Christmas holidays and so forth and so on coming up. We're going to do it December 2nd. With that being said, meeting is adjourned.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Morrison. Please excuse me.
Mr. President, item 4.1, discussion or action concerning vested sick leave of returning employees beyond 5 years. I'd like to change my vote to yes. In fact, I support even beyond that. So let the record show that I will be voting yes on item 4.1. Thank you.
Do we have that, Ms. Blanco? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Morrison. I apologize. I knew I had to give you the floor before the meeting. Ms. LeBeau?
I just would be remiss for not acknowledging that today is Veterans Day. So I want to appreciate all the veterans on the board and everybody in the audience that has served our country. I know we have a few wonderful veterans on our board, so just want to let you know we appreciate your service and all that you do, and that you continue serving our community in the way you do. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. I apologize for us not having that on the agenda. Thank you for your service there, Mr. Angel. I think you were a little before me, about a couple years. Anything else? If not, we'll
thank you for your service.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.